Guys, I don't know, I think it was about a month ago that I asked you if you would be willing to come and talk about your mom a little bit on Mother's Day weekend. And Dan, you were in Calgary, but they volunteered you and said he'd be glad to come. So sounds like a typical brother relationship to me. Glad you're here. And so we're just going to take some time to talk about your mom. And as we do that, there'll be pictures going up on the slides, just kind of rotating it through so people can see your beautiful mom and just benefit from our chat together. I first met your mom the end of January in 2002. Lawson had begun to talk to me about whether I would be interested in serving as the new pastor. And when we got to the point where we thought maybe there was a level of compatibility worth pursuing, I had to come and interview with what's called the Pastoral Search Committee. I had never interviewed with such a large search committee in my life. It was overwhelming. And I went into the room and they said, "There is your chair, Pastor." So I was obedient and sat down in the chair they told me to sit down on. And right to my right was your mom. And all of a sudden, I don't know if it was her smile or her gentleness or her kind words, but all of a sudden I was at total peace. Your mom just had that kind of an effect on me. And those of us who know her, and none of us knew her as well as you guys knew her. But we recognize that this was one very, very special lady. And we grew to love her and appreciate her. And then I think it was a Saturday night, your dad came over to me. I was sitting right there, and he said, "Maryjo's been having some pain in her back. Would you pray for her?" And the news got worse, and you found out, I don't know at what point in the journey, that your mom had pancreatic cancer. And she put up a real brave fight, but we lost her. Now, one of you guys has a mic. Do you know who? Mark? How long ago did your mom pass away?
Check. You know what? It was September 18th? A year and a half ago.
Yeah. And where were you guys? How did you find out Mom was not well?
Well, I guess as for me, I was just starting apprenticeship school, and then I remember, my mom was telling us about how she wasn't feeling very comfortable, and we knew that she was a pretty tough lady, and she was admitting that. We knew that there was definitely something wrong, and so when it came down to it, when she told us, it was pretty tough. It was eyes kind of opened a bit and realized that I guess it like cancer, like hate that terrible sickness, but it affects us all, and it was pretty sad to hear.
Yeah. How did you find out, Dan?
Well, I was actually living in Calgary at the time, and it's weird because I talked to my mom every Sunday, and that was something I did every week. But I was at work, and I looked down my phone. I'm thinking, why is my mom phoning me at 6:00 p.m.? I'm thinking it has to be something serious. And you kind of get a lump in your throat. You're thinking, okay, something's wrong here. And I answer the phone, and Mom says, "I'm not doing very well." I'm thinking, okay, what? Like, I know she had a couple health problems past, but you're not thinking anything too worse. And then she immediately said cancer. And for anybody who's lived with a person who had cancer, that's a horrible word. And I was like, okay, well, cancer, and I thought maybe breast cancer, because, a lot of women get that. And I was thinking, well, no, she said pancreatic cancer. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I said, well, what's the prognosis? And she says, not good. And I'm like, not good? Like, what do you mean not good? And it's like, I have limited time with you to be here. And I was like, oh, great. And then automatically, after that phone call, I felt totally alone. I was like, well, your mom is supposed to be here when you're married and having kids, and they're supposed to live till they're 90, and I find out that she's going to be passing away when she's barely 60. So it was tough. And again, being in Calgary alone, the first thing I wanted to do is just reach out to the people I loved. And I frantically tried to phone, one of the brothers, and I ended up phoning Mark and just breaking down. And it was the worst experience a person could ever have. The woman in your life that means almost the most to you, or means the most to you, is now not going to be longer in your life for very long. And you're in a state of denial and shock. But yeah, it was very, very difficult.
You got anything to add there, Mike?
Well, I had gotten a call from her just in the beginning. We were living in Bigger, so we weren't, that she could tell me in person, but she had told me that initially that she wasn't doing well, and they think maybe it was a tumor. So I'm thinking, well, maybe it's a cyst. Let's just go that way instead of actually hearing the diagnosis. So we'd lived for, I don't know what it was, a month and a half with not knowing for sure. I think it was about a month, I guess, hey? And then when we finally heard what it was pretty awful. Just because she had, lived fairly clean for a long time, she'd quit smoking and a long time ago, and she wasn't a big drinker. She was walking, she was healthy, right? And then, so it was a little bit stunning.
Tell us about your mom and how she raised you. What do you think of when you think of your mom? What kind of a mom was she? What are your memories as both little guys and an adult man? What sticks out about how your mom mummed you?
Probably the lickings.
She, sweet Maryjo, gave you lickings?
Nobody believes that, but yeah, no, she would. We were spanked as kids, and so, when two of us would get into trouble, one of us would get our spanking, and then the guy would be outside the door counting them, to make sure that when the next guy went in the room, he wouldn't get more than, 10 or whatever it was. But
Oh, you have to be fair.
and she was that. She was always fair. Yeah, but no, she was very loving. She always told us that she loved us all the time.
When you say all the time, how much is all the time? Cause
pretty much daily, I would think. Yeah, it was when we'd be off to school, we always had a routine, basically, okay, Mom, bye. See you when I get home. Love you, bye. So it was kind of, I don't know, it may have seemed trivial, but it was real.
What did that mean to you guys, having a mom who said she loved you? How do you think that's affected you as young man?
I don't know. I think to raise in a kind of environment, a loving environment, really does start to someone's character to know that they are loved. And it was just, and I just thank, mom for that, is being in a place where we're always known that we're in a safe environment, and she's always proud of us.
JC, what do you remember about how your mom raised you? Other than lickings.
Well, of course, I didn't get much of those. I was a little off from that one, but no, yeah, again, just the love that she gave to us, and just made us feel so special. She would tell us individually that you guys are gifts from God, and that really I think it really spoke to me. It really spoke to me that we are gifts from God, and so, and she was so happy to be a mother for us, and we just wanted to make the job easier for her. So I think we were pretty good to her because she was so good to us.
Yeah, so how important was not disappointing your mom to you guys? Yeah, you talk about that, Mark, why don't you? They'll give you the mic when it's hard, because you're the youngest.
Mom always, was it, I think it was Mike who actually, you kind of stated, I think, about how when we would do something wrong, there was a fear there, but it wasn't a oh, mom's gonna get me fear, but there was just such an honor and fear to disappoint. I think that we had, just because there's such a respect that we had for her, and she expected a lot from us, and not unhealthy, but she just, I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. It's very, I wouldn't say unique, but it's not something that every dad and mom can say, and I by no means mean condemnation for anybody here tonight, but not all of us as parents can look at our kids and say, my sons, they're all loving Jesus and living for the Lord. What influence did your mom have there? How did she model Christian living? What effect did she have on your walk with the Lord?
Well, and I was just talking about this with Mark and actually Dad before I came here, and one thing that all our brothers can associate with is before this church was Lawson, it was CLA, and I don't know if there's anybody who's been part of that. I don't know if the Dilsners were or whatnot, but anyways, and we always had services, and it was Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, and you know what? We went to twice Sunday, okay, and it was like, okay, we go to every single one of them, and we're on time, and I have to admit, it was something that she ingrained that in us, and it was commitment to the body of Christ, and it really, really stuck with us. And when we hated going, it was like, it doesn't matter. It's you go and you commit. And I remember a conversation with my mom one time, and she talked about how kind of the trend of flakiness and uncommitment to church, and how it hurts the body when you have that. And since moving to Calgary, that was something that was just part of my life, and I really wanted to bring that towards or with me to Calgary. And and that's what's happened now. I belong to a body of Christ, and I just want to give to it, and I want to be a part of it, and I just can't help but think about my mom's influence in that way.
Well, go for it, Mike.
Well, I was just going to say that the other thing that she helped influence was that we created a circle of close friends that were able to build us up and keep us accountable. Our home was always open for anyone, and she taught us that we were to include everyone as well, and that was a big deal.
Yeah, the first weekend our family was in Saskatoon. As pastor here, all of our sons came to Saskatoon to celebrate with us. None of them were living here yet. Guess whose house they ended up at? Hanging out with the Morin boys. There was something going on there that I think blessed all of us who had the privilege of knowing both you guys and your mom. How has the way your mom raised you, Dan, you won't be able to comment on this one too much, but how has the way, I guess you can't comment on it much either, Mark, so we've got two people to comment on this. How has the way your mom raised you affected the way you raise your kids?
Well, me and Janelle, we have like we feel as though like we have to step it up pretty high to be able to reach out. My mom kind of set for us, and Dad has been there for us and be able to kind of encourage us along with. But yeah, it's we want to see like when we see our kids running around wreaking havoc around the around the altar here. It's, you know what, it's good that they're in this place.
That's right.
And I know how much this church spoke to me and my brothers, and therefore I want to see that with my kids as well.
Yeah. Beautiful.
I'm ready. But I think for me, it's just to make sure that my kids know that they're loved and that they're special. Because that's what she did for us. And that was a big deal.
Mm.
And make them go to youth group and Sunday church and stuff.
Yeah. I don't know who your mom wrote this to, but one of you, I think Mark, you sent it to me. And it was, she wrote out here some thoughts on kids.
I think it was to Lavon, because she had kind of asked a bunch of ladies in the church to help her.
Okay, so this is your mom's advice to Lavon. So on here, I found it interesting. She, let me find it here. Oh, babies don't need Prada. Or Prada, how do you say that? Prada?
Prada.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with hand-me-downs or hand-me-rounds, whichever you call them. If you think, when you think about your mom, if she was able to be here tonight, and so many of us wish she still was with us, I'm sure she doesn't want to come back as much as she loved you, but what do you think she might say to those of us who are parents about raising kids and living for Jesus and loving God? What do you think? If she was sitting right there, what would she be saying to us tonight? And I know I didn't warn you with this question, so you have to kind of think real quick. But what do you think she'd be saying?
I think, well, the background of my mother is she grew up really, really, really humbly. She lived in some houses. There was one house, was it in Saskatoon or Battleford, that didn't, it was a basement that didn't have a house above it. It was just a floor, just a floor. And I don't even know if they had like a working toilet. And we had some humble times too in the early 80s when I was young. But it's just, she just really taught us what was important. And it wasn't the shirts that we had on our back, it was that we were special. And you know, I just kind of was thinking about this earlier. Like, she always told us that we were handsome.
Well, we won't go there, but
But I mean, it just goes to tell you that, like, it didn't matter what shirt I had on. She just valued us and made us feel really special. And like, you don't need, you know, the best looking stuff and you know, to keep up with not the Bob Joneses, but the Joneses.
yeah, I think she had that effect on all of us. She had this way of making you feel special. What a gift. What a gift. Yeah. Oh. JC.
Yeah, kind of go along with Mark. Yeah, it's just, it's, like Mark said, like, you know, just the stuff, like I think that, well, with my and John's little family, like, you know, we realize that, yeah, you know, it's, you know, sometimes we can't get what's best out there, but I mean, our kids are happy. They know that they're loved. They're in a safe environment. They're all very good things. And I'm happy to say that we know the Lord, and that's the main thing.
Mm.
I don't know, those guys had a lot of things I was probably going to say, but one thing I did want to say is the whole hand-me-downs thing. Is that you have 4 brothers, right? So the first brother gets the cool clothes, and then you go down to the youngest brother, and by that time, it's so far out of fashion. So, oh yeah, from our Uncle Scott, and then it's to me, which is it's sort of fashionable. And by the time Marky, it wasn't fashionable anymore.
Think your mom would have anything she'd want to speak into our lives?
These guys touched on a lot of it.
Let's talk about, so your mom connects with all of you individually and said, I'm not well, I'm not strong, the doctor's not giving me good news. She raised you to know the Lord and love the Lord. How did she walk through those last, was it a year? 9 months, 10 months? How did she walk through those last 10 months, and how did what she'd spoken into your hearts help you guys walk through those last 10 months? What was in you that helped you with that very difficult time?
Well, I was actually angry for quite a bit of it, to be honest. But I think the way that she walked through it, she actually was comforting me through it and being a mom to me. And like I even said to her at one point, like, this isn't right. Like, you shouldn't be the one that's being strong. It should be us for you. And then she said, well, you're losing your mom. And so she wanted to be a mom, right until she, it was over. So
Yeah, just to kind of go with what Mike said, it's back to the conversation when she phoned me in Calgary. It was interesting because she was more almost concerned about how I was when she mentioned it more than how she was doing. And that's just who she was. She was just so selfless. And to me, it's that, and just through the entire process, she'd say, Dan, how are you doing through this? And it's like, I was worse almost than she was, it seemed like it. It was just a weird kind of situation, but it just showed her character about how selfless she was.
Yeah.
Me and Jill are coming back from Regina today. We were just talking about how, I guess one statement that she told Mrs. Drisner was about one of the things that she wanted to do was get her house in order. And that's make sure that all of us were okay with what was going to with what was going to happen, and that make sure that that we would still be serving the Lord. And I mean, I know that it is our choice, but I think there was a lot of prayer from my mom about that.
Yeah.
I was reading a book this week. There's a quote that kind of stuck out to me as Mike said. You could tell she was just so others-orientated. She always made people around her feel loved. And even throughout, while she was, her last days, she was others-orientated. And it's just a quote from one of my friends. Being others-orientated instead of self-orientated is probably the greatest evidence that someone is really growing close to the Lord. And that's how I felt about my mom. She was so close to the Lord. But she was always others-focused. And that's like one of the, it's the greatest commandment is, like just loving others, but it was because of that relationship with the Lord, with her Father.
First time I preached at Lawson, I mean, for the most part, everybody was new faces to me. But your mom and dad always sat right down there. And I was preaching, and I heard a sound I had never heard in all my years of preaching. And I'll never forget it. I would say something in my message, And from the second row, there would be, and I can't imitate it, but I'll do my best. I'm not a good imitator. But there was this sound. Just like she was eating the most delicious piece, satisfying piece of chocolate cake or something. It was this love for God's word and her ability to encourage me as I preached it that is really hard to replace. So if any of you want to move to the second row, this is what you do. You go,
Eat a piece of chocolate cake.
well, pretend you're eating chocolate cake. And then the night your mom passed away, we were eating supper. And Donna said, we need to get up and see Maryjo. Need to get up and see Maryjo. And I wanted to honor my wife. In all honesty, I was tired, but Donna said, we need to get up and see Maryjo. And we got up to the hospital, and we didn't know what was going on, but you were all there, and your mom passed into the Lord's presence about 20 minutes later. But she did it with triumph and with victory and peace. The second last time I saw her was, I think, the Sunday night before, and we came over to visit you, John, and Maryjo, and you and Jenna were there, Mark. And Maryjo was not well. I mean, we didn't know it then, but she had 48 hours to live. And she's laying down on the Chesterfield in the basement, strong enough to chat. And I said something that she thought I wasn't seeing quite right. 48 hours to live, she bawled me out. But she did it with such love and kindness and sweetness, I felt like she just handed me chocolate cake again. There was something very, very special about your mom. And her character, her personality, even though she's gone, has left a mark on this house. Just like she's left a mark on you. And we wanted on this Mother's Day weekend to honor her. And we wanted to honor your dad. And we wanted to honor you guys. The Morin family, you have blessed us as a church. And we thank you. As a church family, we say thank you. Thank you for doing this tonight, but thank you. Thank you for pouring your heart and your soul. Your mom poured her heart and soul into this church. God bless you guys. Would you give them a hand tonight?